What if I told you that the most powerful thing you could do for your child's brain development, mental health, and future success has nothing to do with expensive educational programs, tutors, or activities? What if the answer is actually removing something from their life rather than adding more? I'm talking about screens. And before you click away, thinking this is impossible in today's world, stay with me, because the science behind screen-free childhood is so compelling that even tech executives who create these devices are raising their own children without them. Here's what most parents don't realize. Every hour your child spends in front of a screen is an hour their brain isn't developing the way nature intended. And I'm not talking about some minor difference. The research from neuroscientists and child development experts is clear and frankly alarming. Screens are fundamentally changing how children's brains are wired, and not in a good way. Let me share what the American Academy of Pediatrics discovered through decades of research. Children under 2 years old gain absolutely no educational benefit from screens. Zero. In fact, screen exposure during these critical early years is associated with language delays, attention problems, and reduced parent-child interaction. For children ages 2 to 5, excessive screen time correlates with delayed social-emotional development, obesity, and sleep problems. But here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Victoria Dunkley, a child psychiatrist who specializes in the impact of screen time, conducted research showing that what she calls electronic screen syndrome produces symptoms almost identical to psychiatric disorders. Children experiencing overstimulation from screens show signs of ADHD, depression, anxiety, and oppositional behavior. The shocking part? When screens are removed, many of these symptoms disappear within weeks. Think about what's happening in your child's brain when they're staring at a screen. The rapidly changing images, the bright lights, the constant stimulation. All of this triggers a stress response. Their little nervous systems are in a constant state of fight or flight. Meanwhile, the activities that actually build healthy brains, free play, face-to-face interaction, physical movement, creative imagination, these are being replaced by passive consumption. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great in theory, but we live in a digital world. How is this even remotely realistic? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Not just why screen-free childhood matters, but how to actually make it work in your real life with your real kids. If you're ready to learn how to raise children who can focus, create, and connect in ways that screen-dependent kids simply can't, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're diving deep into the science and the practical strategies you need. Let's talk about what happens in a child's developing brain during screen-free time that makes such a dramatic difference. When children engage in unstructured play without screens, their brains are doing something extraordinary. They're building what neuroscientists call executive function, the mental skills that control everything from focus and self-control to problem-solving and flexible thinking. Research from the University of Montreal tracked children from birth and found that each additional hour of screen time at age 2 was associated with significant developmental delays by kindergarten. These children showed reduced vocabulary, decreased math skills, lower classroom engagement, and increased victimization by classmates. The children who spent that time in active play instead showed the opposite trajectory, thriving academically and socially. Here's what many parents find surprising. Boredom is actually crucial for healthy brain development. When children say they're bored and we don't immediately hand them a device, something magical happens. Their brains shift into creative mode. They start inventing games, building things, exploring their environment, engaging in pretend play. This is when neural connections are forming that will serve them for life. Dr. Jenny Radesky at the University of Michigan Medical School studied parent-child interactions during mealtimes and found something striking. When parents were on their devices, children made significantly more bids for attention, which parents largely ignored. But in families that maintained device-free mealtimes, the quality of conversation was richer, children's language development was stronger, and behavioral problems were notably lower. The impact on sleep cannot be overstated. The blue light emitted from screens suppresses melatonin production, the hormone that regulates sleep. Research published in JAMA Pediatrics found that children with screens in their bedrooms slept an average of 30 minutes less per night than children without bedroom screen access. That might not sound like much, but over time, chronic sleep deprivation in childhood is linked to obesity, weakened immune function, academic struggles, and mental health problems. Let's address the elephant in the room. What about educational apps and programs? Surely those are beneficial, right? The research is surprisingly clear on this too. A study from the University of Wisconsin compared toddlers learning new words through live interaction versus video. The children learning face-to-face acquired the words immediately and retained them. The children learning from video, they didn't learn the words at all, even after repeated exposure. This phenomenon is called the video deficit effect. Young children simply cannot transfer what they see on a two-dimensional screen into real-world understanding the way they can from three-dimensional interactive experiences. Their brains aren't wired for it yet. No matter how educational the content claims to be, it cannot replace real human interaction and hands-on exploration for learning. Now, let's get practical, because knowing the science is one thing, but implementing a screen-free childhood in the real world is another challenge entirely. The good news is that families who commit to this approach report that it's far easier than they anticipated, and the benefits show up faster than they expected. Start by understanding that this doesn't have to be all or nothing. Research from Boston Children's Hospital found that even reducing screen time by half produces measurable improvements in children's behavior, sleep quality, and academic performance within just 2 weeks. You don't need perfection. You need consistent boundaries that work for your family. For families with infants and toddlers, the path is straightforward. Simply don't introduce screens at all during these foundational years. Dr. Dmitry Christakis from Seattle Children's Hospital conducted longitudinal studies showing that children who had no screen exposure before age 2 had significantly better attention spans and language skills at age 7 compared to peers with early screen exposure. These children weren't disadvantaged by missing screens. They were advantaged by avoiding them. For families with older children who are already accustomed to screens, the transition requires more strategy. Research on habit formation shows that replacing a behavior works better than simply removing it. If screens have been filling after-school hours, you need to intentionally fill that time with engaging alternatives. Stock your home with open-ended materials like art supplies, building blocks, dress-up clothes, musical instruments, and age-appropriate tools for real work like cooking or woodworking. Create what researchers call an enriched environment. This doesn't mean expensive toys or structured activities. It means access to nature, diverse materials for creative play, books, and most importantly, unscheduled time. Studies from the University of Colorado found that children with more unstructured playtime showed greater executive function development than children whose time was highly scheduled, even when those scheduled activities were educational. One of the most effective strategies is establishing screen-free zones and times. Research published in Pediatrics showed that families who implemented device-free dinners and bedrooms saw dramatic improvements in family cohesion and child well-being. Make bedrooms sanctuaries for sleep and imagination. Make mealtimes opportunities for conversation and connection. Make the first hour after school a screen-free transition time for physical activity and decompression. The physical environment matters enormously. A study from Cornell University found that simply removing televisions from children's bedrooms reduced their total screen time by an average of 90 minutes per day, without any other interventions. When screens aren't visible and easily accessible, children naturally engage in other activities. Keep devices in a central location that you control, rather than giving children unlimited access in their personal spaces. Address the social pressure head-on with your children. Explain the why behind your family's choices in age-appropriate ways. Research from the University of Texas found that children who understood the reasoning behind family rules showed better compliance and internalized those values more deeply than children who were simply told what to do. Share the science with your older children. Help them understand that their brains are still developing, and screens interfere with that development in measurable ways. Here's something powerful that families discover when they commit to screen-free childhood. Children's capacity for independent play and creativity expands dramatically. A study published in Child Development tracked children over 6 months after significant screen time reduction. Parents reported that initial complaints about boredom lasted only about 2 weeks. After that, children became remarkably resourceful at entertaining themselves, showed increased interest in reading, spent more time outdoors, and initiated more creative projects independently. The social benefits are equally striking. Research from UCLA's Children's Digital Media Center found that children who attended a screen-free outdoor camp for just 5 days showed significant improvements in their ability to read nonverbal emotional cues compared to a control group. 5 days. Imagine the impact of years of face-to-face interaction instead of screen-mediated communication. Let's talk about what happens in families that make this shift. Parents consistently report deeper connections with their children, more meaningful conversations, reduced family conflict, and ironically, more free time for themselves because children become more independent and less demanding of constant entertainment. A study from the University of Michigan found that families who reduced screen time spent an average of 45 additional minutes per day in conversation with each other. Now, I want to address concerns about preparing children for a digital future. Here's what the research actually shows. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and numerous other tech leaders strictly limited their own children's screen access. They understood something crucial: the skills children need to thrive in the future. Creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication. These develop through real-world experiences, not screen time. Teaching children to use technology is easy and can happen quickly when they're developmentally ready, but rebuilding attention spans, creativity, and social skills damaged by early screen exposure is extremely difficult. The most important thing to understand is this: screen-free childhood isn't about depriving your children. It's about giving them something infinitely more valuable: the space and time to develop into creative, focused, emotionally intelligent human beings who can engage deeply with the world around them. If you found this information valuable and you're ready to make changes in your own family, subscribe to the Parenting Blueprint for more evidence-based parenting strategies. Start today with one small change. Choose one screen-free zone or time in your home. Watch what happens. The transformation might surprise you.